unmasking cybersecurity threats. I'd like to hand you over to the moderator, Kuchum. Here, introduce your panel, and we go onwards. Thank you very much. Good luck, sir.
Test. Great. Thank you for being here. My name is Kutim Kruzeu. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Sentry. And today I'll be moderating the cybersecurity panel, where we've got a lineup of top-notch experts in the world of cybersecurity. And I can say that I'm genuinely excited about the opportunity to engage in discussions with our esteemed panelists about some of the most recent advancements in cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. This, for me, is a fantastic chance to gather insights into the benefits and challenges that accompany these innovations. But before we introduce our panelists, I'd like to give a massive shout out to the organizers who have worked tirelessly to make this happen. Their dedication has brought all of us together, so how about a big round of applause? Thank you. Okay, so our first panelist brings a wealth of experience from spending more than 15 years in the IT sector. He has dedicated nearly a decade to the intricacies of cybersecurity. His professional journey has taken him globally, with significant stints in Canada and the US. Currently, he's leading the PwC Cybersecurity and Privacy Division for Albania and Kosovo. His academic achievements are highlighted by the master's degree and bachelor's degree from the Florida International University, where he graduated with top honors. Recognized by institutions like USAID, headquarters in Washington, for his impactful contribution and having made significant strides at global firms like Deloitte, his insight into the convergence of AI and cybersecurity are eagerly anticipated today. Outside his professional endeavor, he's deeply intrigued by the potential and challenges of artificial intelligence in the cybersecurity landscape. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Aryan Sharameti. Next up, we have a principal security researcher at Premises Security, a cloud security startup in the cloud detection and response space. He has over 13 years of professional information security experience, including over 7 years in incident response consulting and research roles at Mandiant and Microsoft. His primary research focuses include attacker obfuscation, and evasion techniques, and developing novel ways of detecting advanced threat actors. He's an international speaker and instructor, having presented his research at more than 30 conferences around the world, including Black Hat USA, Black Hat Asia, and DEF CON. He's the author of multiple open source projects related to obfuscation and detection, including Invoke Obfuscation, Invoke Crafter, Revoke Obfuscation, and Invoke Dosfuscation. Mr. Bohannon obtained a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from the University of Georgia and a Master of Science in Information Security from the Georgia Institute of Technology. Over the last 5 years, Daniel has also contributed a lot in this region. He has personally and professionally been involved in providing ethical security training to Albanian university students and young professionals via university seminars, conference presentation, and hands-on workshops at hackerspaces and anywhere else where people would gather. This has led to his company Permiso hiring 5 Albanians in internship and full-time roles over the last year. When Daniel is not programming, Daniel enjoys playing musical instruments, reading books, learning languages, and talking with friends over high-quality coffee while exploring the best coffee shops whenever he's traveling. He also enjoys off-road motorcycles and has a bucket list of overland routes that he hopes to explore with local riders he meets along life's journey. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Daniel Bohannon. Next up, we have a security engineer who is focused on threat detection and incident response. She spent close to 5 years working at Meta in California and then in London, where she led projects across threat detection, response automation, and incident responding to various internal and external threats to company assets and infrastructure. In her current role, she is applying her wealth of experience to her home country of Kosovo through the CIDR project, which is funded by USAID and implemented by DAI, and is supporting the government and critical infrastructure entities to strengthen their cybersecurity resilience. Exona holds a bachelor's degree in computer science from California State University, East Bay. When away from the keyboard, she enjoys spending time with her loved ones, traveling, and staying active. So please, a big round of applause for Exona. And last but not least, we have Luzoniak Giu, who serves as the government CDO and advisor to the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kosovo on information technology. Within this role, his key tasks include a coordination of the digital transformation in the government of Kosovo, leading the development of the national digital and cybersecurity policy and strategy, and overseeing the key digital transformation projects in the government. Luzon is a member of the High-Level Digital Transformation Commission and Executive Commission on Health, which are chaired by the Prime Minister. He also serves as the chair of the Kosovo Critical Infrastructure and Cybersecurity Working Group. Prior to his work in the government, Luzon has worked for almost 2 decades in various executive and management roles in the ICT industry in Kosovo. He has overseen the implementation of many complex digital transformation projects, both in Kosovo and Switzerland. Luzon holds an MBA with concentrations in corporate financial analysis and planning and strategic leadership from the Smeal College of Business of the Pennsylvania State University. In addition, he also holds a bachelor's degree in computer engineering from the University of Pristina. Luzon is a Kosovo American Education Fund alumnus and a member of the Beta Gamma Sigma International Business Honor Society. So please join me in welcoming Luzon. Now, without further ado, I'd like to kick off this panel discussion. We know that nowadays, AI and cybersecurity are two fields where they complement each other pretty good. So there's the offense side of it, and there's the defense side of it. So today we'll try to share some experiences on how AI can be used in cybersecurity in an offense way and in a defense way. So without further ado, I'd like to start with Aryan with the first question that I have prepared for you. Could you please share more on how do you think that artificial intelligence enhances the sophistication of phishing attacks in corporate environments?
Okay, it's on. Thanks very much for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here, and thanks for the audience for taking their time to be here. As you said at the beginning, AI, it does present a lot of opportunities, but then at the same time, it's also like presenting a lot of threats. Given that the question is more about the threats, I'm going to focus more on that rather than the other side. We are used to see, especially with the phishing, generic content in the past, and with AI, we don't see that anymore. They're using artificial intelligence, deep learning, natural language processing. So when you get those emails, they are like human-like written emails, not that generic. So their content is much more personalized, and that's why it's making them more difficult to notice them, to identify them, and then to take any action. Second, with the AI, now you can do also like profiling. So before you send that one same email to a lot of people, it's gonna go and like do a profiling on you, and then it's gonna adjust the content that it's related to your activities. Let's say last weekend you were with your company like away days, and then you might get an email from the hotel saying that how was your stay? We might like share a gift card or something like that, you know, and then you can totally relate because it's personalized, it's something that just happened. So it's mastering the art of like manipulating the humans more easily. Second thing is that the scale now with the AI, it's much faster and much wider. And then maybe one more important aspect of it is the depth of engagement. Before, in like old days, you would have like one email that it was sent to you and immediately they would ask for you to take action. So either to click on a link or attachment, like on payload. Now they're taking their time. So they might approach you, for example, to HR, hey, I checked this posting that you have. I'm interested, can you give me some more information? And then second or third email, they might say like, oh, I did try to upload or create an account and I'm getting this error message. So they're taking the time, it's much more advanced, it's much more intelligent. So when you have all these factors and other factors, because I don't want to take much time, it's making it very challenging to like combat AI in phishing, and it completely changed the ball game. Thank you.
So you mentioned a lot of psychology involved in AI. Now it's going to be very hard. So my next question to Daniel is, are there any notable differences in the psychological tactics which are employed in AI-driven phishing attacks compared to the traditional phishing methods?
Yeah, no, it's an excellent question, Fadimidert. Yeah, I mean, as Ariane was saying, it's much more, the content's much more specialized, and I think it does prey a lot on human psychology. I received a really awesome phishing email about a month ago, and it was, I mean, the English was really good. You know, it wasn't just like 2 sentences, it was like 5 small paragraphs, and it started with acknowledging very specific information about me. That was publicly available, but it was saying, hey, I saw this presentation you gave, link to the presentation, that's the link. You know, I read this paper, or I saw your comments on Twitter about this and just wanted to, you know, appealing to the human emotion, you know, thank you, good work, let me ask you now, are you interested in submitting something to this journal? You know, here's a form that you can go and see and read more about what we do. And you know, it's something still felt off to me, so I usually don't, you know, go down those trails as a security professional, but it was still very bizarre how good that email was. And so one benefit of working for a smaller company is you can just ask everyone, hey, did anyone else get a really awesome email like this? Turns out one of my other colleagues had as well, and the same thing. Like, so, you know, as you start to use like, you know, LLMs like ChatGPT, and you kind of start to think through what input prompts could have been, could an attacker could have used to generate this email, then you can start to see similarities between different examples. My colleague also had, you know, a very flattering first paragraph mentioning a presentation he gave or a tool that he released. And so again, as a security professional, it was kind of startling. And yeah, you know, security education is always important, but it's getting a lot harder these days when you see how easily someone can produce that, especially if English wasn't even a language the person could speak at all, and they could generate that content. It's quite impressive. Scary, but impressive.
Definitely with you. And it seems that a lot of these techniques they're like, came from traditionalist perspective, and they're using the something that it's in the past. It has been used in the past. So my next question to Exona is, what do you think are the latest techniques in advanced phishing attacks powered by artificial intelligence? Are they the same? Is there anything new that has been brought up by AI? So could you please share more on that?
First of all, hi to everyone. Thank you for being here. I am really grateful to share the stage with this great panelists and to be here. So as per the question, I quite frankly don't think that so much of the specific techniques changes when AI is integrated in a phishing attack, but I do think that it's quite more efficient and therefore more effective. So I think leveraging AI as a threat actor in a phishing attack, each stage is easier for them because, for example, let's consider the reconnaissance phase where usually an attacker is trying to gain as much information about an organization or a company to find the target group that might be more vulnerable. By leveraging AI, they can basically effectively use all publicly available data to very quickly create a graph of people they might want to target. So instead of, for example, going manually through LinkedIn profiles, they can do that automatically leveraging AI and therefore reduce their time spent on that stage of the attack. At the same time, I think, for example, if we consider once the email gets through, they can, update indicators of compromise quickly so that you as a responder might not be able to block lists as quickly or figure out really what's being sent where. So I think even though the actual techniques of how you might compromise a company or an email via phishing doesn't change so much as the speed at which you can do it and the mass data you can work with that maybe otherwise was very difficult to do.
Thanks. I do agree with you, absolutely. Now, all of us come from the private sector, but there's a very critical part that we need the help of, is the public sector. So my next question to Lulzan is that what do you think is the role that the government should play in regulating AI technologies to prevent their malicious use, either in phishing attacks or other attacks, and ensure the security of corporate environments?
Okay. Hello from my side as well. It's a great pleasure to be in KosICT 12th edition, and thank you for having me in the panel. Of course, one of the key roles of the government is to do regulation, and we've been quite involved in this last 2 years to introduce regulation related to cybersecurity. So we adopted a new law on cybersecurity earlier this year, and we've also been working on amending the penal code to include offenses related to cybercrime. And then we come to the AI. This is, of course, an area which also needs to be regulated. And, of course, there is a big debate about this across the whole globe. And some countries have already adopted some AI regulation. For us in Kosovo, it's relatively easy, if I can put it that way, to do the first step. Because we, as an aspiring EU member, of course, need to follow the EU legislation in this area as well. And in that regards, we have been closely following what the EU is doing. Of course, this is the only easy part, so we don't have to think from scratch, but everything else, of course, has its complexities because even transposing EU legislation requires time and effort and work. But of course, the biggest challenges come with the implementation itself. But going back to the EU Act, so we have been EU AI Act. So we have been really closely following from the government side the developments, and we've been also talking to people who have been involved in preparing this legislation, and to really try and understand how, because the time will come for us also to transpose that. And again, it's a complex process. So the first draft was issued in April 2021. And this act from the EU side is not effective yet. So it's still an ongoing work because of the, I would say, the dynamics of this area, but also overall the bureaucracy of the EU process, because making new legislations really takes time. But the important thing is that we try to learn I would say, the lessons and look at the objectives and how we will be able to introduce this regulation in Kosovo as well. So here we are talking about balancing. Of course, the act itself looks at I would say, embracing this innovation brought by AI, because it really brings so many benefits, can bring so many benefits to society and economy, to all of the sectors, and we can name any, and everywhere there is a potential use of AI. But of course, there is the other side of it. How do we make sure that it's human-centric and trustworthy? How do we make sure that we look at the fundamental human rights and we make sure that it doesn't jeopardize safety and health of citizens? So these are the dilemmas which the EU Act has been looking, and there are some key principles there. Again, this kind of legislation, as we've discussed with people who have been working on it, is very difficult to make it very prescriptive, because, of course, by the time this legislation becomes effective, it's already obsolete. And that's exactly what happened, because when this was first issued in 2021 as a draft, ChatGPT was not so obvious, at least it was not public. So, of course, the focus at the initial stage has been not on regulating AI itself, but to regulate the usage of AI. And in that regards, the approach has been risk-based. So to define what kind of uses of AI really pose an unacceptable risk, what usages pose high risk, and which ones do pose limited risk. And then ChatGPT became a big thing, and this generative AI. And then the thing is that we are not talking about systems who have a certain very specific use, but we are talking about multiple use. So we are talking about foundation models where the model itself can be used for multiple uses. And then it makes the things complicated. And that's why the AI Act in the EU has been circulating and being amended. And also, as I mentioned, their approach has been to not make it too prescriptive, too detailed, but to base it on principles, and then let this, I would say, details coming in a dynamic manner in terms of interpretation guides. And the idea there is to establish an AI office which will be regularly, really, I would say, amending these interpretation guides so that, they follow the trends which are so fast. So in this regard, I think this risk-based approach has really provided some clear guidance so far. So there are areas where there is unprecedented risk usages. So we are talking about social scoring, we are talking about remote and real-time, let's say facial recognition. We are talking about predictive policing. So all of these are considered, according to the current draft, a really unaccepted risk. So they are banned by the upcoming AI Act. And then there are other applications which are considered high risk. So measures have to be taken to really make sure that those are really implemented safely and taking into account all of these aspects of human rights, fundamental rights, taking into account safety of citizens. Now, when we come to in particular, I would say this AI-driven phishing attacks, it's much easier, because when we talk about, from the regulation aspect, because when we talk about regulation, we talk about things which we want to allow, but we want to allow them in a controlled manner. In case of AI-driven phishing attacks, it's much simpler, because it's not something which needs to be controlled. It's a crime. So like any other crime, it has to be outright considered criminalized and be punished whenever is used. So in that regards, I think when we talk about AI-driven phishing attacks, we have to think about it from the crime perspective. And we have been looking at the Budapest Convention as I would say, the key guideline, which is almost 20 years old, but still serves as a key guideline for countries around the world to look at aspects of cybercrime. So yes, it might be needed because of the impact that AI-driven attacks can make. There might be considerations to really consider the severity of these crimes and maybe to consider higher punishments because of that. But at the end of the day, it's still a crime.
Thanks, Luzan. It seems that there's a lot of work to be done by the governments. Now we come to the tricky part, to the challenging part, how we can defend ourselves. So, Aryan, what do you think, in which ways can employees be educated and trained to recognize and defend against advanced phishing attempts which are powered by AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. Employees, people are one of the key components. Like, it's not enough only to have a technology in place, to have like XDRs, EDRs out there. It's also like you need to go one step further. You also need to have like processes in place in case something goes through, like how you're going to respond to that incident and so on. But going back to your question, as far as the training, what we have seen so far, unfortunately, is that usually training takes place during the onboarding, and then kind of people forget about it. So we don't want to do that. We want to avoid that. We also have another case where it's that time of the year where you have to conduct those trainings, and then what people do, they will just mute, play, take those tests. It's just another test done. So I don't think that they are taking these trainings that seriously. So these trainings need to be either redesigned, think like how they're going to be delivered. Are they going to be like in person? Are they going to be online? But not only stop at the training. You also need like the other components, like from time to time, to have like a simulation of phishing attacks and to see how your employees are reacting to it. You also want to make these like quizzes or trainings to introduce, like to gamify them, so people enjoy while they do this training and they actually learn something new. And constantly you need to inform them about what are the red flags, and then talk about AI, and then talk about consequences. So maybe one of the other things would be like to send like a monthly newsletters. And I know that those newsletters might be ignored by people, by some of them, but then some of them do read them, do take them seriously, and then they talk about it. So together, the awareness, it's raised, and that way, at least, like they know like how to identify these red flags. If it's something too big to go true, then you know it is too good to be true. So do not click, do not respond. But especially with the AI, maybe to introduce these new techniques and tactics. We know, like in the past, what phishing was tapping on, like fear, urgency, trust, and then curiosity. And as I said before, now the engagement goes more in depth. They are not sounding that urgent. They are not like making you fear. As Daniel explained, they are doing like reconnaissance. They are gathering all these data, so they are much more personalized, and you are much more inclined to either respond to that or just follow their instructions. So trainings should be taken very seriously. I want to also maybe like, because I know like in US and other countries, they do have like much more bigger budgets than we do. In here, what I have seen so far is that Information Security Department, it's in charge of those trainings. So apart from day-to-day activities, they also have this additional task, and then you have like things that are piling up. So I think that HR department, as part of their structure, and some of institutions, they already have a training unit within HR division But then in these trainings also to include cybersecurity training, and then take like completely different approach, and not just do them as we did in the past. And then we will see, I think, better results. At the end of the day, you might have the best technology in place, but then you're going to be strong as your weakest link, and we know that humans, unfortunately, are the weakest links in most of the cases. Thank you.
Thanks, Arjan. So training, a lot of training. Now, Daniel, you mentioned that one of the benefits of being a small company, a startup, or in the beginning is that you can ask around and say, hey guys, did you receive this phishing email? Or did you receive this email? But can you please share more on how do you think can businesses, which are a bit bigger, distinguish between traditional phishing attempts and those who are powered by AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for each individual company, it depends on your size. You can probably do things with more precision as a smaller company. And this is where I guess I'll acknowledge my bias. Most of my professional experience here has been working for large companies, either in a threat hunting capacity or from a security product capacity. So a lot of ideas that I've tried there have to work across millions and millions of devices or millions and millions of identities. And so some ideas in my head that I've tried and have written off as, oh, that doesn't work, it could still be a great idea for a lot of organizations. And so I guess just a general word of advice is you know, everyone's perspective comes from their context. And so if people are telling you this is a good idea or a bad idea, like when it comes to detections, just explore your data. I think understanding your data is what's most important there. And when it comes to understanding the data of what this phishing email looks like, you know, I'm sure that there's really novel ideas that people will come up with to use large language models like ChatGPT to do things like, I don't know, feature engineering. Like from a data science perspective, are there additional features that an LLM can extract from this email that maybe as a human we wouldn't necessarily think about? And so I think there can be interesting ways to kind of compete, you know, good and evil from these LLM, you know, powers and perspectives. And actually, Arjan, when you were talking about security training, it just kind of made me laugh a little bit because maybe there's a startup idea somewhere of if people are maybe not as engaged in security training, like why not deep fake it? Why not say, hey, what's the most engaging thing for you as a person to get this training? Like what's the, you know, if you're maybe super technical and you see this training and think, oh, this is a silly basic level thing, this is so far below me. Well, hey, you get a technical version of what this phishing email looks like. So I don't know, I think in terms of all the education platforms that we're seeing today, it's very impressive at how engaging they're becoming, and I think as a society, our attention spans are getting smaller as we're more consumed to our, you know, to our devices. And so I think from an advertising perspective, marketing perspective, people understand that human psychology is changing a bit. How do you maintain attention? I think the security industry will have to follow that as well from a training perspective, and hopefully we'll see some really good ethical uses for this technology to help defend and protect people. And I hope that the people that have those ideas have a voice and a means to share that, because it's easy to become jaded in our industry of just looking at the negative things. You know, especially as a defender, sometimes it feels like you're always behind a little bit, but it's always encouraging to hear people's novel ideas with new technology. And so if that's anyone in this room or anyone watching the video, I really look forward to hearing the good news about how you're using this to defend these problems, because we need creative thinking, we need new ideas, and we need people that have the passion and the bravery is the word that comes to mind for me, to try something new and to know that it can have a really positive impact.
Thanks, Daniel. So students, young boys and girls, take notes. You can start a company. There's quite a lot of ideas here. Next up, Exona. I know you've mentioned that the techniques do not change, but it's way faster. It amplifies the traditional way of phishing. But how do you think that business can adapt their cybersecurity measures to counter AI-fueled phishing attempts? What are some of the insights that you can share with us today?
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of my bread and butter from defensive security engineer. So I think if you get anything out of what I at least am saying in this panel is that there is no one tool solution to phishing or cyber threats in general. I really preach for a thorough cybersecurity program for a company as a whole, so you have different protective measures in place in different stages. So first and foremost, multi-factor authentication. I'm pretty sure you've all heard of it. So I think that's the first thing that really helps against phishing. So regardless if you do fall for a credential harvest phishing attack, if you are diligent enough to not do second authentication because you didn't really log in anywhere and it's coming out nowhere, you've defended yourself. After that, obviously, least privilege, in my opinion, even if someone is already compromised, but they don't really have access to any sensitive information or the rest of the network and infrastructure, aren't really able to move around after their initial phishing attack was successful, then still you've won. So I think that really, as a cybersecurity program in a corporate environment, at least, you should try to have a thorough program where, for example, you have application block listing in your environment. So even if you do get an email with potential link to malware, or you download an attachment that's malware, but it can't execute because you only allow specific applications or executables, then you're still prevented a further attack. So I think overall you should invest in different layers of your stack, network, application, host, email, filtering, for example, or let's say your indicators of compromise, you verify them through threat intel proactively. Let's say you're able to implement something that does either static or dynamic analysis before an email ends in a mailbox, and therefore you're able to actually check if there's anything malicious and quarantine or discard it automatically. For me personally, even if it's just unwanted and not really malicious, just to be safe. So I think overall, we should invest more in programs in general, different aspects, and therefore try to at least stay ahead of, very sophisticated emails that look really real, but you have so many other steps that will be taken later on that will make it unsuccessful in the end nonetheless.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. So a lot of layers to secure. Now, Lulzan, where do you think, in what ways can government policies and regulation encourage businesses to invest in AI-driven cybersecurity? So how do you think the public sector could help us out in this part?
So when we look at this more broadly, we look at it from a perspective of cyber resilience. Again, resilience sounds as a buzzword, but it's really, really important because no matter how much we try, cyber breaches happen. So not only we have to think about preventively about protection, but we have to think about how do we really endure, how do we withstand, and how do we recover? And that's why a lot of focus is on the resilience aspect. And when we talk about resilience, of course, we have to think about priorities, because we will not be able to protect everything when we look at from the government perspective. And there are some crown jewels we have to look at first. And that's why we talk a lot about the critical infrastructure, because that's our main area of concern. That's also what's covered by the law and also by the strategy. And then there are two aspects of it. So one aspect is that the operators of essential services, the owners of critical infrastructure, have the obligation to fulfill minimum standards. So it's an obligation, they have to do it. But the other side of it is that, yes, it is a burden on these operators. So that's why the law on critical infrastructure also talks about the financial incentives that the government needs to give in order to make sure that these operators and owners of critical infrastructure are able to really fulfill those minimum standards. So I think this is very important that we look at the both sides. So yes, there are obligations, but there should be also ways to support, I would say, companies in the private sector. I'm referring to the critical infrastructure operators to really fulfill those standards. But this is, of course, the most important aspect from the government perspective, but then we come to other businesses which are not considered critical infrastructure. And there we need to find mechanisms to really support, I would say, implementation of security standards. And in today's world, it means also using various tools. So yes, it's a combination of people, processes, and technologies. And as the things are evolving, this cybersecurity is becoming very much AI versus AI war. So on one hand, the bad guys are using AI for introducing attacks, and we also, from the defender side, have to use AI.
Well, there we have it, folks. With that, we come to an end of our discussion today. I would like to thank our panelists once again and all of you for your attention. With today's insight, let us all stand together against cyber threats, on with collaboration, technology, and awareness. I know that the panelists will be available throughout the day, moving around the venue, so please feel free to approach them and ask them if you have any questions or want to learn more from their experience. I can personally say that the allotted time of this panel hardly scratches the wealth of the expertise and the knowledge that the panelists have. So don't be shy, don't hesitate, go out and talk to them. I would like to personally wish you a great day today, enjoy the rest of the talks, and see you around. Thank you.